The chief flight attendant's voice rang out coldly, slicing through the quiet of the first-class cabin. "I'll say this one last time. Please leave this seat and move to the back. If you don't, I'll call security." Each word landed like a cruel decree, polite on the surface, but saturated with contempt. Amara Morgan, a black woman in her late 30s wearing a modest cream blouse and a navy blazer, remained seated in the front row. She looked up, unshaken. Her voice was soft, but unwavering. "I've already told you. I'm not moving." There was no anger in her tone. Just a quiet, steady strength that unsettled everyone around her. It was the kind of calm that made people pause, made them rethink what they thought they knew. Around her, the silence in the cabin was thick. The other passengers watched, some in curiosity, others in discomfort. No one said a word. She had been publicly humiliated in full view of a crowded plane, yet no one could have guessed that, just minutes later, she would rise, and everything would change. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell to get notified for more, share to friends. Where are you watching from? Please tell us in the comments. We love seeing how far our story goes. Amara had boarded Flight 308 from New York to San Francisco alone, with just a carry-on and a seat booked in first class. Her assistant had booked it late the night before. The flight was with Aeromount Airlines, a commercial airline she'd never flown with before, but one her company had just quietly acquired under a holding firm. She walked through the terminal like any other traveler. Her natural hair was pulled back neatly, and she had no makeup on. Most wouldn't look twice at her. That was exactly how she liked it. Let people show you who they are when they think you're no one important. At the gate, she scanned her boarding pass. The agent barely made eye contact. "Group 1?" he asked, doubtful. "Yes," she answered calmly. He waved her through. She stepped into the aircraft and found her seat, 1A, a window seat in the front row of first class. She stowed her bag, sat down, and quietly began checking her phone. That's when the flight attendant approached. The woman, blonde and immaculately made up, looked confused. "Excuse me, miss, are you sure you're in the right seat?" Amara looked up. "Yes, I am. This is first class." "I'm aware." The attendant paused. "Can I see your boarding pass, please?" Without hesitation, Amara held up her phone. The attendant's eyes narrowed as she read it. 1A. Did someone upgrade you at the gate?" "No. It was booked directly." The attendant nodded stiffly, then walked away, but not far. She stood near the galley, whispering to a colleague and glancing back at Amara. Within 5 minutes, she returned, this time with a firmer tone. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to move to the back. There's been some confusion, and we need this seat available." "I'm in the correct seat," Amara said again, evenly. "If there's an issue, I'm happy to speak to the head of in-flight operations." The flight attendant's eyes narrowed. "That won't be necessary. If you don't move, I'll have to involve the captain." Amara folded her hands in her lap. "You're welcome to do that." Within minutes, the captain himself emerged from the cockpit, a tall white man in his 50s with a clipped tone and authoritative stride. "What's the issue here?" The attendant quickly recounted the disruption. The captain looked at Amara with the same patronizing skepticism. "We need to verify your booking. If you can't comply, I'll have to ask you to deplane." Amara tilted her head slightly, then stood. Calmly, she said, "I think it's time I introduced myself." The captain raised an eyebrow. "And who are you?" She opened her phone and tapped into her email. Amara Morgan, CEO of Bridgeview Holdings, the parent company that acquired Aeromount Airlines last quarter. The silence was immediate and brutal. She showed the credentials on her phone. The airline logo. Her corporate ID. A few rows back, someone muttered, "Oh, my God!" The captain cleared his throat, clearly unsure how to respond. "Would you like me to call the board and delay your flight further?" she asked. "Or shall we resolve this properly?" The flight attendant's face had gone completely pale. I didn't know." "No, you didn't," Amara replied, with quiet authority. "Because you didn't ask. You assumed." The cabin crew stood frozen. A couple of first-class passengers were now watching with open mouths. Amara stepped into the galley. "You'll inform ground operations that we're delaying takeoff for a personnel issue. I'm invoking Code 7 Review Protocol. The flight won't proceed until this matter is addressed." The captain stammered. "With respect, Ms. Morgan." "I'm not here for theatrics," she interrupted. "I'm here because your team failed to follow basic, non-discriminatory protocol. Not just against a passenger, but your own boss." Security came within minutes. Not for Amara, but for the flight attendant and, after further questioning, the captain. Both were escorted off the plane for misconduct and failure to follow proper chain of command during a personnel-related conflict. Back in her seat, Amara took a breath. The cabin was quiet again, but the air had changed. A younger flight attendant, who'd watched everything unfold, approached and knelt slightly beside her. "I just wanted to say, thank you for not staying quiet." Amara offered a small smile. "Sometimes silence feels safer. But safety built on silence lets rot grow." The flight took off 40 minutes later with a new captain and a crew suddenly much more attentive. There were no further delays. No more stares. Just a hushed respect that hadn't been there before. A few days later, Amara issued a new directive across all Bridgeview companies. Mandatory empathy and anti-bias training for all frontline staff. Anonymous reporting tools. And more undercover audits, not for punishment, but for prevention. When asked by a journalist later why she didn't simply announce who she was at the start, her answer was simple. "I needed to see who they were when they didn't know who I was. That's when truth shows up." I hope you enjoyed this story. If you were Amara, what would you have done? If you haven't subscribed till now, please do. Your support means a lot. See you on our next story.